Hey everyone, and welcome to a Time Shifters Podcast independent film highlight. Today, Tom and I have a screener called Long Time Listener from 2026. Tom, how are you doing this evening?
Not too shabby. Looking forward to chatting about this one.
Yeah, excellent. This film is the directorial debut of Danielle Nicolette, who also appears in the film alongside stars Megan Holder, Lyric Bent, and Cleo Berry. When a true crime podcaster becomes the target of mysterious quote-unquote long-time listener, fame quickly turns deadly. Pulled into a web of secrets that grow darker by the minute, she faces long-buried truths that blur the line between storyteller and victim, and raises one terrifying question: who's really in control of the story? I was kind of keen on watching this, because it seemed like a little different than some of the other screeners that we get. It wasn't necessarily just like a horror film or anything like that. I was like, okay, a mystery, a thriller, it's interesting. And then you throw in the idea of like, oh, it's all about a podcaster. That'll be fun. Problem with this film is the writers have no idea how podcasts work.
It didn't seem that way, no. Now, I'll be interested in your perspective because I've seen some overblown, like, well-funded podcasts. So I don't know if that's the territory they're trying to emulate.
Maybe. That's the only thing I can think of, because this thing opens up with the idea that this podcast is part of a network. It has these network ratings. The network is sounding like, oh, no, your show isn't so hot anymore, so it's going to have to change. I'm like, who? Why? What?
Yeah.
Podcasts? And there are podcast networks, but I don't think they have plush offices and recording studios and everything that's depicted in this film. If they do, it's just a level of podcasting that I have not experienced in my life, anyway. Where
I think they're going with this is like the stuff. What's the? I'm gonna blank on his name. The
Joe Rogans.
Yeah, the Joe Rogans. It felt like, okay, they're trying to represent, that kind of thing, the kind where you get sponsorship and funding from some sort of corporation to be a part of it. But the thing of that is even podcasters, it's still kind of an independent thing. You might get asked to elevate to that level, but there's usually a lot of oversight. It's just, if you're no longer producing rating numbers for them, go back to just doing you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just because the network no longer wants your show to be the show that you want, that doesn't mean you have to stop doing your podcast, which is kind of the whole main thrust of this, at least the beginning of this story.
Yes. Yeah, so no, it was kind of an oddball representation in the fact that this wasn't a big, like, when they're like that, they're a big kind of thing. And this then didn't seem that big, and of course the true crime podcast thing is inundated with so many different versions. I don't even know how one would go about picking a winner to make a network thing out of it.
No, absolutely not. Well, even it's kind of like, okay, fine, there's a podcast network. Fine. You're a real popular show on this network. Fine. All that. Out in the real world, you're not going to find posters for the podcast. You're not going to go to the local bar and someone's going to go, "Oh, hey, turn on that podcast." It doesn't work.
It is a little peculiar that way. But the podcasting element of that is not the only thing that's a little flawed with this film.
No, I agree that some of this may be just because I'm a little too close. This must be what it's like when doctors watch medical dramas.
Kind of,
That's not how you do it.
That's not where the appendix is.
Right. So admittedly, the whole podcast, I have to try to put that aside. Although I will admit that through almost the entire film, every time something would come up, I literally yelling out loud, "That's not how podcasts work." But okay, so putting that aside,
Yes, no, you got to let that part go.
Trying as hard as I can to put that aside, I still think, and I don't want to go through this whole thing picking only the bad bits of this film. But I do think they made some mistakes.
Yes.
Some of them minor, some of them just, niggling things. One thing that I had is when the caller comes on, the longtime listener, and they put this voice modulation on it. It is so thick.
Yes.
That
you can't almost make out what they're saying.
I have no idea what they're saying. I'm catching like every third word kind of thing. They really, I guess they were trying really hard to mask who the culprit was, right, and whether they were male or female and all that stuff, but they pushed it a little too hard.
They did. I have one niggle, and this is one for everybody that does this, because I always kind of get weirded out. It's a little thing, but it is annoying. I really don't like it when anything in modern movies where they're also set in essentially present day, they have access to present day technology, and they fail to acknowledge how present day technology works. So
the cell phone.
The cell phone. Thank you. You picked up on that too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a character with a cell phone in his hand getting a text, and then at some point he is attacked, and the phone falls out of his hand, and you watch him trying to reach for the cell phone, and it is clearly an iPhone, and you're kind of like, and I'm trying not to set off my own technology when I do this, but hey, Siri, call 911.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Oh, even before that happens, that same person uses someone.
No.
You did set off your phone, didn't you?
I did.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, as long as the police don't arrive now.
Yeah, so as long as we're safe. Yeah, that same character takes someone else's phone and holds it up to that person's sleeping face to unlock it. That's not how they work. If your phone does that, you need a new phone. That's a severe security problem there. So yes, phones don't work that way.
Hang on 1 second. Hello? No, that was an accident. Sorry. Okay, just making sure. Sure thing. Thank you. You're welcome. Bye.
Well, good to know that works. I might leave that in just as a safety.
Yeah, you feel free. Because, yeah, guess what, folks? The technology works pretty good. So in the event of an attack, feel free to talk to your phone.
Yeah, we'll be sure not to use those numbers again while referring to this film.
Right.
So that just is a big slide for the plot. Like, oh, he unlocks the phone with her sleeping face. I'm like, that's asking me to believe a lot, just because, as you said, that's not how technology, which I'm familiar with, works.
Right. It seems like a nitpicky thing, but we all know this to be true. So when you watch your characters in a film fail at the most basic things of our current technology, you're like, why?
It's a little bit like, and I have seen it, where someone will pick up a cell phone and someone else will hang up and they'll hear like a dial tone. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That went out 20 years ago. I'm sorry.
Right, and honestly, with some of your newer audiences, anyways, they won't even know why you're trying to do that.
Right.
That's not a teenager's experience. It's not a 20-something's experience.
One more, I guess, or just a couple more nitpicks. There were some moments when I got the feeling that they wanted us to be able to read the texts that were on the phones.
Yeah.
And very often, we couldn't.
Right. This is where I'm going to give a little leeway from the fact that this is it's an independent film. It's going to be a little lower budget. They're not going to do some of the gimmicks that have come up recently when trying to do texting, where your hero or whatever will be typing on their phone and they'll bubble it onto the screen somewhere so that you can share along in what's going on.
Yeah. I actually don't care for that all that much either. I will admit that I'm kind of a hypocrite when it comes to this. I don't like that. I also don't like it when the text screen on a phone is obviously a fake text screen. So I just feel like there's got to be like a happy medium somewhere in between those two methods.
Yeah. And
actually using the actual text screen that you're not able to capture on camera isn't it?
Yeah. No. And again, it seems silly to make fun of such kind of detail, but I mean, the details are important.
Well, and those details felt important to the plot of this film.
Yes, when all of this is about the kind of communications that people were doing to carry the plot along and set the suspense, it matters when you don't do it right.
Right. I guess the last sort of nitpick I have is that much of the dialogue I felt was almost too refined. Someone was writing it and they wrote it very eloquently.
Yeah.
But it's like, but don't have your actors actually say it that way.
Right.
You know, it doesn't feel real. I don't have any precise examples or anything like that, but there was just some times where the way they were speaking, it felt like there was someone reading something that for English as a second language advanced edition or something, where it was all very precise and the way they were saying it and like, yeah, where's some inflection, some emotion, a little bit more, just make it feel more human.
There is that the one that I wanted to still, again, I'm not trying to trash this, because here, let me throw a little positive in the mix.
Yeah, right, yes.
It had an interesting premise. Like, granted, it follows along pretty cookie cutter to the true crime podcast kind of drama that you get in some things. I was very much reminded of a recent series that was on starring Kaley Cuoco that was called Based on a True Story, which was very much about a serial killer that connects with a podcast and all of that, and puts the podcasters in danger as much as does anything else. But that was also intended to be very dark comedy driven, and it kind of worked that way. So this had some of that in it, but it also had, unfortunately, it had a I know what you did last summer kind of storyline in the mix. And kind of like, I've seen this before. Mm-hmm. But that said, the characters that were in it were kind of compelling. They were interesting. The actors were very proficient at their roles. And the attempt at the twists that they stuck in there, I don't know that they effectively pulled them all off, but it wasn't entirely something that I was expecting to get out of this particular piece. So that was kind of cool.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what kind of annoys me the most about this film, is because everybody that's in it is kind of like, all right, you're doing what you're doing really well. Yes. I mean, this is well acted. It's actually with issues with the phones and everything aside, it's well shot. It looks beautiful. It is. They did not go cheap on the filming or anything.
No.
It looks like a professionally shot film.
No, they got good sets and locations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it clicks along. It's only, I think it was 82 minutes or something. Yeah, okay. And it does move and it clicks along and so that's all great. But it's like, but this story is so tired. And it's like, I've seen this. I've seen this in a multiple different forms. You're not surprising me with anything. I pretty much had the villain pegged like within the first 30 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
I certainly knew who it wasn't because they were trying way too hard.
Yeah, no, when they lead you by the nose in this direction, you're like, that's not, no.
No.
No, but where it landed didn't entirely make sense either. And there was another very important detail. There's a death that happens in there that involves a strangulation turned into a at least proposed suicide. Mm-hmm. But the thing of it is, this is a true crime thing too, and while they don't ever bring in like authorities of any kind, the police are never involved in this at all, which is also kind of a weird element. Trying to pawn off this particular strangulation as a suicide by hanging doesn't make any sense, because anyone that knows in a true crime world would want to check the forensics on something like that. And there's a big difference between fingerprints around a neck versus a noose of some kind.
Right.
And that gets picked out in a hurry. So the fact that didn't make it downstream, I'm like, okay, now you want us to be in your world, but you're not even handling your own world correctly.
Exactly. So. Yeah, this film just asks too much of the audience to ignore too many facts.
If this is the movie that you watch, and it means you've probably watched movies like this before, for you to forget everything that everybody's ever done in that genre before and say, you don't need to worry about that, just focus on our story. That's not going to work.
Now, so in the end, as I said, it disappointed me only because I feel like it could have been so much better, because they had so many of the right tools. They had the right actors. As you said, the sets, the locations, the filming was all so good. And I think just the script, the story, not even so much the script in its entirety, but the story itself, I think, let this film down.
Yeah, no, it just inject a little more reality, a little more humanity. Let them talk like people talk.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That would be my advice. Still, hell of a good try, Danielle Nicolet, for your first time directing. I'll give it to you. I think your directing was great. I think you were just let down by this story. Yeah,
no, you need a tighter storyline, tighter script.
Yeah. Anyway, if anyone else wants to check out Longtime Listener, it is streaming now on AMC's All Black Network, and I do believe you can pick it up on Amazon. It will cost you a little extra. It's not included with Prime, but you can get out there and watch this film. Please, if you check it out, come back and let us know what you thought of it. Follow the link tree in the show notes and get back to us. That's going to do it for this. We'll be back real soon with a full episode. Until then, bye.
See ya.